Hello and welcome back to Under the Surface, everyone. Those of you who are watching on the YouTubes and those of you who are listening on the podcast. So glad you're here. We are going to be talking about the 9 centers in the Human Design Body Graph today. And we are going to be, or I am going to be sharing a really different way of looking at the 9 centers, a different perspective that will hopefully help you to understand them in a deeper way, but also not just understand their function and what they're for, but understand how they're actually guiding every single one of your decisions, influencing every single one of your decisions. And I like to say a lot that life is basically just one long string of decisions. And when we can learn to make decisions in alignment with who we truly are and our true path versus, pressure that we feel from the outside or influence that we're getting from, the people around us and society. And I mean, we have influence coming at us from all directions, right? When we can learn how to recognize what that influence is and come back to our true, authentic, core selves and make decisions from that space instead, we can't really screw it up, right? Not to say that, unsavory things will never happen, that everything's going to work out exactly as we expect it to, that things are always going to be just so light and flowy and easy. That's not what alignment means. Alignment is making the right decisions for you and surrendering the outcome, right? We always like that word surrender is such a buzz word. And it's like, well, how do I do that? Well, the parts of you that are gripping so tightly, because they want to prove something or they want to keep up or whatever it is, it's like, that is the pressure. That is the influence. That is what we call conditioning, right? And so when we can become aware of that conditioning and actually come back to what is true for us deep down, then we can surrender what the outcome is going to be and be at peace, knowing you made the decision from a place of true connection with yourself and alignment with yourself, okay? So I feel like what happens sometimes is that, don't mind me, by the way, if I'm wiggling around a lot and I'm like pausing and taking deep breaths. I am 22 weeks, I almost said 22 months. Can you freaking imagine? 22 weeks pregnant now, and I am a petite person. So I'm finding that like the more the baby grows, the less diaphragm I have to actually breathe. So bear with me. Okay. All right. So what happens in human design a lot of the time is we discover our design and we're like, woohoo, this is amazing. Like, I feel so seen. I feel so validated. I feel so understood. I feel like, my experience finally makes sense. And it's so liberating, right? And it's like this high that we get, this little power up. But a lot of times we stop there, right? And it's like we stop at the awareness stage. And, not that there's anything terribly wrong with that, but the whole point of human design is not just becoming aware of yourself and also your not self, which is basically all of this conditioning that controls our lives, controls our decisions. It's like we can become aware of that and do nothing about it, right? And then it's just information. And a lot of times people use that information as excuses, to give you an example, like, oh, I get stressed out over everything because I have an undefined root center. It's like, okay, while that is probably true, like, how is that working out for you? And do you actually think that's how you're designed to move through your life? Do you feel like you actually are designed to rush through life, feel stressed about everything, and not be able to cope with stress in healthy ways? I don't believe that. I believe that when we become aware of who we really are, and we become aware also of our conditioning. A lot of times through, I love looking at conditioning through the lens of the 9 centers, which is, what we're doing today. It's like, okay, well, now what do we want to do with this, right? Is your current way of operating working for you? Truly, And if not, the whole point really of human design is deconditioning. And deconditioning is just like peeling back the layers of the onion to get to the center of who you are and live from that place. To stop living from the pressure, to stop living from the influence and the opinions and the emotions and the expectations of others, right? So the way that I teach the centers is a little bit different, of course, because I just tend to do things differently. But basically what I've realized is that I don't know if it's because I've just been doing this for so long and have read charts for so many hundreds of people and have been able to like point out different patterns, or if this is just, I think it's part of the way I was designed as well. But I can like hear and see your design in real time. So when I'm having a conversation with you, even if I don't know your design, you'll say things and I'll be like, "Ooh, that's sounds like the channel of judgment," or "Ooh, wow, you're really projecting. I wonder if there's a 5 in your profile." It's like I can hear that, or I can observe it in your behavior. And so what I've realized is that what I find very helpful for, not just myself and my own process, but also teaching my students. I have a certification program that's open right now for enrollment, by the way. And the way that I teach things is I try to help you see how these aspects of human design actually present in real life scenarios, in real patterns, in real personality quirks, in real, it's like, yes, we're talking about energy, but energy manifests through your behavior, through what you say, right? And so we can look at these different aspects of human design and almost give them like a persona or a voice. So when it comes to the 9 centers, these 9 centers are so important. It's important to know this and to understand this, because most people, their decisions are made by the pressure that they feel, the influence that they're getting from their undefined centers. I would argue most people. That's why we have people who are constantly making decisions to do things not because they want to or because they're aligned, but because they're trying to prove themselves, or because they're trying to keep up with someone else's pace, or because they're trying to keep the peace, or because they're trying to appear a certain way, right? So these pressures, these influences will really, quite frankly, take us completely off track. And this can, over time, this basically, this turns into our personality. This turns into the way that we operate. That's why we go through what we call deconditioning in human design. So if you're going to really commit to your human design experiment, and you're going to commit to, which all that really means is you're committing to coming home to yourself. You're committing to living and operating in a way that's truly in alignment with who you actually are and who you actually came to be, and the path that you actually came to walk, rather than one that has been decided for you by your parents, by society, by all these different influences, right? So when we talk about the 9 centers, I want you to understand that like it's not just like a nice to know. It's, the 9 centers are quite literally dictating your decisions. So what we want to do is we want to be able to have awareness of what these influences actually are, what these pressures actually are, so that we can eventually come back to our true inner authority. And authority is another aspect of your human design. That is your inner GPS. When you're following your authority, you are making the correct decisions for you. You're making the aligned decisions for you. Does that mean everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows all of the time? No, it just means that you can trust your own inner authority and surrender the rest, and trust that whatever the outcome is, you are meant to navigate that. You are meant to learn from that. You are meant to experience that. And so you don't have to be in agony over second guessing yourself, over thinking you made the wrong decision, over things not working out the way you wanted them to. You can surrender that and trust you're on the right path, right? Sounds so nice, doesn't it? So that's really like the whole point. Now, a lot of times we're disconnected from that inner authority because we've been defaulting to outer authority, to other people's authority over our lives, to these different pressures and influences that we're feeling. So I wanted to just lay that groundwork, and I'm going to get into a different way of looking at the 9 centers and understanding their actual influence over you and your decisions, so that my hope is that once you have this awareness, you can start to, yes, be aware, be present with it, pay closer attention, and you can honor, right? So when your undefined heart center speaks up, you can honor that, wow, I'm feeling a lot of pressure to commit to this in order to prove that I'm a good parent. You can honor that, you can listen to that, and you can still come back to your inner authority and make a decision from a place of alignment with who you truly are, right? And there's an immense peace in that, and I want that for you. And I want you to be able to look at these 9 centers as sort of like guides to your own personal transformation, to your own personal homecoming. So here's what we're going to do. I want you to imagine that you are the CEO of your own life and you have 9 board members, okay? Each of the 9 centers represents a different board member. Each board member has a different function and a different voice or persona and a different influence over the decisions that are made in your life, okay? So these influences, these personas, these voices of the 9 centers are going to depend on a couple of different factors. One, are they defined or undefined? So if you're brand spanking new to human design and you've never heard the terms defined or undefined before, an undefined center is, when you look at your chart, when you look at your body graph, the undefined centers are the ones that are white. These are the ones that are not colored in, okay? The defined centers are the ones that are colored in, okay? Doesn't matter what color they are, but the ones that are colored in are defined, the ones that are white are undefined. The ones that are white are the ones that are, these are your board members that are the least consistent, the least reliable, are the most susceptible to influence, and can be the loudest, okay? These can be the loudest, especially when you're not aware of them. Your defined centers are more reliable. They're always there, and they tend to have a pretty consistent way of operating, of making decisions, of speaking up, when you're having a board meeting, okay? So another factor is that it also depends which centers are connected, okay? So you have defined centers. You might have your ajna, your mind, connected to your throat, okay? These are 2 defined centers for you. They're sort of a little team, okay? And then maybe you have your splenic center and your root center defined and connected to each other. They're kind of a little team too. They might not always be, these 2 little teams might not always be on the same page, but they're pretty consistently working together, and they're pretty consistent in the ways that they want to make decisions, right? Your undefined centers, these ones are they can really be wild cards, okay? So it really does depend, what kind of influence they're feeling today. So let me give you a couple of examples. Now, by the way, this accounts for, like, they're influencing all of your decisions. All of your decisions. So, like, your decision to go to the gym today, you know, and your decision to stay in a relationship, your decision to change careers, like all of your decisions. So imagine that you are considering changing careers. Okay? Big move. This is a big decision. There are a lot of implications to a decision like this. Okay? So you have let's say you have an undefined heart center, and you have an undefined sacral center, and you have an undefined splenic center. Okay? So your undefined heart center is going to come into this meeting and be freaking out a little bit and be saying, like, okay, well, we were offered this opportunity, like, we definitely can't say no. We have to prove that, like, we're valuable, and we have to prove that, you know, I'm making things up, but your heart center can get really loud about wanting to prove, making decisions based on, okay, well, I'm going to say yes so that I can be a good marketer. You know, this job proves that I'm a good marketer. So I have to say yes so I can be good. Your undefined sacral center is like, okay, I need to keep up here. Like, I need to work harder. I need to, you know, your undefined sacral will feel a lot of pressure to kind of like keep up and achieve. Your undefined spleen, however, will be like so scared of any sort of change. Like, okay, well, here's our comfort zone. Where we are now is our comfort zone. Where we are now, we know that we're safe. Where we are now, we know that, you know, even though there's some toxic stuff going on, it's okay, I can handle it because it's predictable, right? So, like, we can't make that move, you know? Meanwhile, you're emotional, okay? So your authority center is the emotional solar plexus, okay? And your solar plexus is defined to your throat. Let's say you're a manifester, okay? So your defined solar plexus is over here listening to your undefined heart center, listening to your undefined sacral center, listening to your undefined splenic center, and is going like this, up and down, right? You're on a roller coaster wave of emotion right now. You're feeling like really, really high because you're really excited about this opportunity, but then you go home and you're feeling really, really low because you're really scared, right? So there's this whole wave. Now, the emotional solar plexus is tricky because all of these pressures, right? All of these very loud influences. And by the way, these undefined centers are very easily influenced by the people around you as well. So if there's someone around you that's saying, like, this is a really good opportunity, you have to take it, whatever, your undefined heart center is like, oh yeah, like, I have to say yes, right? So your emotional solar plexus, based on all of this pressure, feels this pressure to make a decision right now, right? And will feel pressure to make a decision at the height of your emotional wave, and will feel pressure to make a decision at the bottom of your emotional wave. And so what we need to do is we need to ride out those waves and eventually reach some sort of clear, calm, neutral clarity. That's when we make the decision. So your emotional solar plexus board member in that meeting is saying, okay, I'm really excited and I'm really scared, you know, scared to leave my comfort zone, scared to disappoint someone. You know, I'm scared of all this, but I'm also really excited about the opportunity. I'm really excited to be of value. I'm really excited, right? So there are all these emotions going on. And so your solar plexus is going to be like, all right, you know what? I just need to sleep on it. I just need some time. I need some time to feel this out. I need some time to imagine how my life is actually going to change, right? Because my splenic center is over here like, oh my God, everything's going to change. It's going to be so scary. You know, we're never going to feel safe again. And your emotional solar plexus is like, okay, well, let me just like feel out if that's true, right? And your defined G center, say you have a defined G center also to your throat. Your defined G center is like, yeah, this job does really align with my values. It aligns with, it's where I want to live. It aligns with who I feel like I am, and so your G center has this pretty steady influence over that decision. But at the end of the day, your solar plexus is like, yeah, okay, I still don't know, right? So your solar plexus needs some time. This is this is your most reliable decision maker, is your solar plexus. That's your authority. So that's your authority center. So I want you, like, you might be like, okay, well, how does this apply to me? So you want to know that, like, you want to look at all of your centers and say, okay, my undefined centers are the ones that are feeling the most pressure. They're the most easily influenced, and they're also the least reliable, right? So they're going to be really, really loud and feel really, really uncomfortable sometimes, and other times not so much. And so you want to know that, like, look at those undefined centers, look at their function, look at the not self patterns of those undefined centers. Ask yourself, especially when you're making a decision, how much of my decision am I giving over to these undefined centers, right? How much of these voices, of these influences from the not self, of these undefined centers, are taking over this meeting right now, are taking over this decision? And what is my authority center? Who has the final say? So if your authority is emotional, that's your solar plexus. If your authority is sacral, that's your sacral. If your authority is splenic, that's your spleen, right? So you're going to figure out, like, these are all the influences on my decisions that are really not reliable because they're so easily influenced by other people and my environment and my conditioning. And that's exactly what's creating pressure, right? And that's why so many people are making decisions completely out of alignment with who they actually are, because that pressure feels so loud and so uncomfortable that it's like, okay, well, this must be the way. A lot of times it's like your authority can feel quieter, especially when you're not aware of these other influences, right? So you want to come back to your inner authority. That's like the chairman of the board. It's like, okay, everybody has a vote, okay? But, the chairman and you as the CEO, like, final say. So when you can look at this and you can observe yourself making decisions, and this is what we call passenger consciousness in human design. This is where we release the illusion that we're in the driver's seat. We let the body be in the driver's seat, and we are kind of observing ourselves. We have this neutral observation of ourselves and how we're operating, how we're moving, how we're making decisions. So you want to be able to observe, wow, I'm feeling a lot of pressure to say yes to this so that I can prove something. Wow, I'm feeling a lot of pressure to say no to this because I'm really scared of how things might change, and so understanding all these different influences, being aware of that. And then at the end of the day, coming back to, What's my inner authority saying? Okay. Now, when we make decisions from our authority, this is why I always say to my students, there are radical consequences for being yourself. There just are. And it's not really a bad thing, it's just a thing. Because everyone else has their own board members that are screaming at them about what's the right thing to do. And there are other people who have opinions about what you should be doing. And there are societal norms and expectations and all of these different things. Your authority doesn't give a flying F about all of that. Your authority only cares that you are being who you are and you are on your authentic path. Your authentic path might veer off from everyone else's. You know, you might be designed to just take a road less traveled. And that is cool and that is okay. There are consequences that come with that. People misunderstanding you, people judging you, maybe having to make big life changes that are very inconvenient, right? There are all these things. I can definitely attest to all of those things. But what you'll get is a sense of peace that no one else can give you, right? What you'll get is a sense of alignment with who you truly are, where it's like, eventually it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, right? And when you get to that place, when you have this certainty within yourself, when you have this peace within yourself, this confidence in making decisions even if they don't please everyone, this is magnetism, right? This is why we are attracted to certain people. This is why we are magnetized to certain people. It's like, because we can see that they are living without waiting for permission from anybody else, that they're making decisions in alignment with them. Alignment is magnetic. I think we all know that, right? But it becomes this abstract concept. Alignment is such a buzzword that has also become such an abstract concept that it's hard, I think, for people to actually observe it in the real world, but that's all it is. It's making decisions that are authentic to you and who you actually are. Not the persona that you have created, not the persona that your conditioning has created, not anything other than who you truly are in this very moment and the path that you are meant to walk in this very moment. And when you can let go of the past and past mistakes and past conditioning, and you can let go of future expectations and future worries, and you can be fully present with what is, and you can acknowledge, yes, I do feel these pressures and I do feel these expectations and I do have conditioning, and yet at the end of the day you can make a decision that's meant for you. Not only will that bring you more, you will magnetize more of what's meant for you, but because I know many of you watching or listening right now are also business owners. Most of you are business owners who are business owners because you have your path, your authentic path. Who you authentically are is someone who is meant to help other people know themselves, find themselves, walk their authentic path, decondition, right? And maybe you're not doing it through human design. Maybe you're doing it through nutrition. Maybe you're doing it through therapy. Maybe you're doing it through energy healing. Whatever it is, I know who my people are. So when you get to a place where, and the thing about this too is most of us here, those of you listening and myself included, we're very sensitive, right? I have undefined head, undefined G center, undefined sacral center, undefined root center, and I'm like, wait, is that it? I think so. And so I'm extra sensitive in those areas. I feel the same pressures, right? And we feel them amplified. We have this input coming in, especially in those undefined centers all the time, and it's amplified. It feels really big. Sometimes it feels impossible not to make decisions based on that, right? But when we do, this is where we feel out of alignment. It's almost like feeling out of integrity with who we actually are and what we're actually here to do. And, this is sometimes what comes out of this is like, for me, the over strategizing, the overworking, the rushing around, the comparing myself to other people, all of that stuff. It takes us off our authentic path. It slows us down. It takes us off track. So what I really wanted you to do was understand a different way of looking at the centers and of understanding their influence over you and all of your decisions, so that you can come back to your inner authority and what's true for you and your authentic path. And if you are loving this conversation, if you love learning more about human design and you want to go, like, here's the difference between knowing your human design and actually embodying it, is just that. It's like, you can know all of these influences over you and still not change a thing. Still make your decisions from those places. But when you can take that awareness and use it to make decisions differently, to operate differently, to move differently, this is where we actually embody our alignment. And this is what, it's like, I can teach you as a human design teacher, I can teach you what all of the centers mean, what their function is, what the patterns of the undefined centers are, and what the patterns of the defined centers are. And I can leave it at that, right? And I think most programs do that, right? And it's a lot of memorization, and it's a lot of repetition, and it's a lot of, like regurgitation, like, oh, you have an undefined this, and it means this. But what I want to do, and where my program kind of like is different, is that we go way beyond that. It's like, yes, we're teaching you the concept, but we're also teaching you how to apply the concept and embody a different way of being, right? So that's Embodied by Design. That's my practitioner certification program. Like I said, we are currently open. We are about to close the doors for the last live round led by me. That's happening this week. We're closing the doors. So if you're really digging on all of this, this is the first week of EBD. This is what we're covering. We're covering all 9 centers. We're covering their physiological function, their energetic function, the patterns that show up both through behavior and in the body when your undefined centers are taking over, versus, when we can transcend these patterns into wisdom to actually become in alignment and more magnetic. And we're talking about this, and the implications not only on your own life, but on your business and your strategy, as well as your work with clients. Okay. So if you want to learn more about Embodied by Design, I'll put the link in the show notes. You can also reach out to me and ask questions. But yeah, this is what we're doing. This is what we dive into in the very first week. So even the first 2 weeks where we're covering the centers in Embodied by Design have the potential to completely change how you see and understand yourself, how you operate, how you move in your business, and how you work with your clients. So it is, we go deep. And we're all about the embodiment. So I hope you loved this. I hope this gave you a different perspective, and a different lens through which to look at the centers and understand them on a deeper level and, their influence over your life. If you loved it, please, as always, rate and review the podcast. Share it with friends. If you share it on social media, please tag me. I'll put my Instagram in the show notes as well. You can also DM me and just let me know. I love to hear from you. I love to hear that the podcast is helping you, giving you breakthroughs and aha moments. I am here for all of it. So before I totally lose all of the breath in my lungs, I'm going to close this for today. And I hope to see some of you inside Embodied by Design for week 1 beginning next week. That's it. See you later.